What's up, knife freaks, sharpness geeks, and purveyors of stabby goodness? Welcome to the Knife Freak Show. My name is Jonathan McNees, and as you can see, this is definitely not Mr. Chase Boatwright. Today, we have got the boss lady herself, Miss Amy McNees, my beautiful wife, with us.
What's up, guys?
So, Chase has got some stuff going on this weekend. He's super busy, so I got her, it took a little bit, but I got her talked into coming on here and doing a little podcasting with me. So you guys please give her a warm welcome to the podcast world here. So yeah, I think we had a pretty good week in the shop this week, huh?
Yep, busy.
Yeah, a very busy week in the shop. So this will probably be a little different than our normal format because since Chase isn't on here, obviously we're going to talk about kind of some generalized stuff. But obviously, we can't give you any updates or anything about what's going on with Chase and his stuff in the shop. So it's going to kind of revolve more around what we're doing. So we did have a good week in the shop. We got a good number of Dixons out. Had a good Dixon drop Friday. We're on pace to get quite a few more Dixons out this coming week, and we're starting to get a decent amount out to dealers. We got several batches scheduled to go out to dealers this week and next week. So while continuing to still do our Friday drops. And I think we're going to have a little something, some kind of special ones for this coming Friday. So we got to see. They're not all done yet, so we'll see how that pans out. So no promises, but we're going to try to have some stuff that's a little different than just the base offerings this week. So look forward to that. We'll maybe be able to tease that a little bit as we go during the week. You're looking at me like maybe you don't know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, we've got a couple other things that we haven't talked about that we may slip in there too if we can get them done. We'll see. Some of the ones you know about them, but they're not. We haven't talked about doing them this week, so we'll see. We're going to try to get some a little bit different in there for you guys. So that's kind of what we've had going on in the shop. We did have one big event we had this week was we got central heat and air put in the shop.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, boy, that was a nice that's a nice upgrade. So on that note, if you guys watch my vlog, which it will be on the one that I'm going to post for this week. Last week I did a vlog. I'm going to try to start doing these at least most weeks, if not every week. And I posted one last week that showed a bunch of behind the scenes stuff in the shop. I did another one this week. I haven't got it fully edited and posted yet, but when it does, you'll see more info about the heating and stuff, or the central heat and air. So we had two pretty good sized mini split units in the shop and like one window unit up in the front window. And when it's not blazing hot, they do a pretty decent job. But when it gets in Alabama dead heat of the summer in July like this, late July, and it's up in the high 90s and the heat index is over 100, and all these machines running in the shop that put off heat, they just absolutely cannot keep up. And there was a few days there where it was miserable. Like just standing out there, not even really exerting a lot of energy, but just standing out in the shop, you'd be like working up a pretty good sweat pretty quick. So that's not real conducive to a great work environment for the guys to be able to do their best work. It's also not great on the machining side because the machines actually are pretty sensitive to temperature changes and stuff. So being able to keep it a little more climate controlled in here is a big deal. So we bit the bullet and spent the money to get a central heat and air unit installed this week, and it's all done now. Besides keeping the overall shop cooler, we have a few rooms like the grinding room, bathrooms, stuff that separate room where the tumbler and stuff is, that had they stay closed off basically all the time, especially the grinding room. The door stays closed. The whole point of it is to keep the dust in there. And so since with the mini splits, there was no ducting run to any of the rooms or anything. So when they're in there and the doors are closed, it was a furnace. Like we had fans going in there, but it was miserable. So guys standing there at the blast cabinet, it just like blasting and stuff is just miserable. So now we have actual ducts run into those rooms, so it's so much more pleasant. So that's a big one for us this week is getting that done. So we're super excited about that. So I think that's kind of about it as far as big things or what happened in the shop this week. So really no major problems that I can think of. I think everything went relatively smooth. We're starting to get on track with having enough parts here and getting them processed in a timely manner to where we can actually put out the number of knives that we want to. So looking good. We're really set for having a really good week this coming week. So So,
well, that would be because you work all weekend.
well, yeah, we did. So we've been trying to get to the point where we have, and for us, at least lately, and most of the time, having blades ready has been our biggest challenge. We've got handles ready to go and have had for a while, but I've told you guys about the blade grinding and switching over to doing it in house and all that, and so we've been struggling to have blades ready to go. And the idea is to have on Monday morning when we come in to have that enough blades for that whole day completely done, sharpened, ready to go, ready to be assembled. Everything gets fit up and all that, because it's as you guys will see if you watch some of these vlog videos, like there's a lot more to it than just assembly. There's a lot of fit up that goes into them as well. So it's not like they just grab those stack of blades and just, throw the knives together. So ideally, we need to start out on Monday morning with a full day's worth of blades ready to go so that we can start in on that day. And we need to have a full day's worth of blades for Tuesday, the next day, ground and basically ready to start processing. And what the processing involves is basically deburring, softening the edges, and then any little cleanup that needs to be done by hand, and then blasting them and tumbling them and then sharpening them. And so if we, because what we've been doing, like last Monday, we started off, we didn't have anywhere near enough blades for Monday. So we were running behind. We were just basically hand to mouth the whole day and then the whole week trying to get blades done just in time to, before the assembler needed them. So, and we ended up getting behind. So I came in this weekend or I've been back and forth out here all weekend. Basically, we started off with some blades left over from this past week, but we got enough blades done and sharpened and ready to go now that we're starting the week with, just like I just said, we're on schedule with it now. So, it's taking a good bit of time out here this weekend for me to do that, but it's going to be worth it this week. So on that note, I think one thing that I wanted to talk with while Amy's on here with me about is some of the ups and downs of the journey as far as getting to this point. Because I know some of you guys, and we've talked about it, especially back at the beginning of the podcast, kind of gave like the origin story, all that stuff. But she may have a little different perspective of some of the, the years leading up to going on 2 decades leading up to this. And so, I know a lot of you guys never even heard of us until we were, McNees Knives, a production company. Or a lot of you heard of us through the Spyderco collab and stuff like that. But you never saw all the years of clawing along and, trying to create a name for ourselves, me trying to learn the craft and actually learn how to make folders and evolving my design philosophy and my design skills and all that. So anyway, thought we're not going to talk about it a lot probably, but just thought it might be good to get her perspective on some of that. So is there anything that you can think of that stands out from, maybe the early times, early years through now of kind of stuff that maybe people didn't see behind the scenes or whatever that helped get us to here?
Lots and lots of work. Every evening, every weekend, constant, putting in the time, putting in the hours, barely seeing each other a lot of times. I was working, he was working this. Like, we both had full-time jobs, and then you were coming home and going straight to the shop, and I was coming home and cooking and cleaning and getting the kids ready and everything else. And then we had very active kids who played football and cheerleaded, and like we would literally meet each other on the road a lot of times, taking them everywhere that they had to go, and still getting everything done. But but I think both of our personalities are that we don't know how to sit down. So I guess it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. That's just kind of, we're both fairly driven and very driven. Like she said, it would be, so we both worked full-time jobs, and, in the very beginning, for how many years did we, so from 2008 to what, 2015?
At the end of 2014. In December of 2014 is when you went full-time.
So over 6 years, we did, I did as a part-time maker, and I made a lot of knives as a part-time maker, probably more than most part-time makers, probably more than some full-time makers, to be honest with you. Like she said, I had a job. I actually did home health physical therapy was my job, and I would be able to, not every day, but a lot of days, I would be able to get my patients all seen by like early afternoon. But I would, part of the way I was able to do that is I wouldn't take a lot of time during the day while I was seeing my patients to go through and do all the paperwork, which computer work, whatever, entering in all the notes and stuff. And so I would do that at night. So in between, so I would get done, I would come home, I would head, like she said, literally head almost straight to the shop and be working back there till supper time, or usually beyond supper time, and then be, in a little bit of hot water because I was late for supper. And then after that, sit down and do all my notes for the day in the computer, enter all the stuff in, and then get up the next day and do it all again. So that was our life. And like she said, on the weekends, like I'm a big, some of you that pay close attention know that I like hunting, and I'm a big turkey hunter, deer hunter. But during those years, I wasn't much of one. I didn't go a lot at all. Like Saturdays and Sundays, I was in the shop most of the day, both days, unless we had something, just that couldn't be missed or whatever going on. So anyway, several years of that, and then we switched to full time. I switched to full time and didn't really change a whole lot because I would still work a normal work day in the shop and then still be back out there. Usually I'd come up like when she would get home from work and the kids would get home, come up, spend a little while with them, and then I'd be back in the shop. And it was just a lot of back and forth, weekends, still working most of the time on the weekends and stuff. So, and then it was how many years ago now that you came on?
It was October of 2022.
Okay. So October of 2022, she came on full time, left a really good corporate job. She was in, at that point, she was in healthcare for sales, or sales for healthcare. And it was a really good job, but she left that. And I will say, I got to give credit where credit's due. Her having a good job and being willing to work and help provide for the family allowed us to be able to do this, because without that, it would have been tough, but it would have been a lot tougher. But to be honest, like with you, when I quit my job, it's not like we really kept track of the numbers back then at that point, but we both kind of agreed that I wouldn't quit my real job until we thought that I could make as much money off of the knives as I was doing with my real job. And so, and I'm sure there were times when it was, I was actually probably making less. And for sure, we were reinvesting in the business this whole time. So her holding down a good job during that time for sure helped us to be able to do that. That allowed us to reinvest more money back into the business to just continue to grow it and grow it and grow it. And we had moved over here. We built a new shop and already gone. We were a couple of years into the production stuff at that point, 2 to 3 years into the production stuff by the time she came on. And that's been a huge help with her coming on too, because she's taken over she handles 99.9% of the customer service. She handles all the admin type stuff, all the financial stuff for the most part. I mean, we talk about everything, but she's in charge of all that. She makes sure the bills get paid, makes sure that we get paid, all that kind of stuff. So that's been a huge, with everything I've had to try to learn between learning how to run CNCs, learning how to program, learning how to do all the 3D modeling, learning how to run a company and actually like teach people how to do the things that I know how to do while I'm still trying to learn how to do other things. That's been very challenging, and there's no way I could have done it with trying to keep everything that she does on my plate as well. So that's been a huge boost to the company to have her come on full time. So yeah, I think the bottom line is, well, a lot of work, like you said in the beginning, went into it, just basically being willing to buckle down and work, have very little free time and stuff. And then being willing to take the money that we were making and reinvest it back in the business rather than go out and buy, all the fun, cool, shiny things that we would like to have bought then, or go on all the big trips and stuff. I mean, we still took vacations and stuff. It's not like we lived like, total, whatever. Like we weren't never going anywhere, but we for sure could have done a lot more had we not been turning around and reinvesting in the business to try to build it on up. So, and that's still happening today. I mean, that we're still doing that. We're, by a long shot, taking the majority of it and reinvesting it in the business. So, that's how we got from point A to point B. So when you guys see me get a little vocal, a little fired up about some of these companies, and I say that loosely with kind of some air quotes, that have popped up out of nowhere, where somebody drew something up in their notebook sitting at their kitchen table, and now all of a sudden they have a knife company. When you see me be a little kind of, agitated about that, that's why. Because we have done all these things and put in all these sacrifices all these years to get to this point. And then you see people that have basically done almost no sacrifice, that are trying to, kind of, get in on the game or whatever. It's pretty frustrating. It's basically like being standing in line at Disney World or something, and you've been standing there for 3 hours in line to ride the rock and roller coaster, and then some dude just walks up in front of you and cuts the line and hops on in. Like, it's very frustrating. So, that's why one of the main reasons we get so fired up when I talk about that stuff, because we know what it's taken to get here, like, to do it this way. So anyway, before I get too fired up about that, we could probably move on to another subject. You can tell by the way she was looking at me that she was like, okay, don't go too far. All right. So can you think of anything else, like, as far as like the ups and downs along the way, that stands out to you?
Well, I mean, you say we went on vacation. We've always worked through our vacations too.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever taken a vacation that we didn't take work with us.
Yeah, true. You for sure did with your other job.
And we take customer service with us.
For sure.
It goes with us. It may take us an extra minute or two to answer an email, but it still goes with us.
Right.
We still try to stay on top of it. We don't have a whole team of customer service experts or anything
or
like
AI
that.
or AI doing our customer service. So that's
correct.
One thing, guys, and this is actually a relevant topic too, even for this weekend, because we've been dealing with some stuff this weekend. Like, guys, we're like, basically, I answer a very few of the emails. Usually if it's one that's like very technical or something, I'll just answer it instead of having to like basically tell her what to tell the person. But 99% of the emails that she's taking care of, like she said, we don't have a customer service team. We're not doing it with AI. We're not outsourcing it to, overseas or whatever. This is basically her answering. And guys, we, as much as we do work, we don't literally work 24/7. So, and for some reason, it seems like, especially lately, we get inundated with emails. It seems like starting on like Friday evening. And then, which is fine. We have no problem with getting emails over the weekend, and we try to respond to a lot of them over the weekend. But we've been running into cases where people are just getting like super impatient. It's like they'll email on a Friday night at like 10 o'clock at night, and then when we haven't answered them by Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, they're freaking out and going online and bashing our customer service and stuff. Like, it's just like, guys, have a little bit of understanding and patience. Like, I know that we live in a digital world and that we're all spoiled to like getting everything we want right now and being in touch with people instantly. But like, there's still human beings on the other end of this email, and those human beings are not sitting there in front of that email, able to answer it 24/7. Like, we're not robots. So please and I know that we're not the only company dealing with this. So please, when you're dealing with companies, and, keep in mind that like somebody is actually answering those emails. I mean, for companies like us that aren't using outsourcing or AI or whatever, you've got somebody that works for that company, probably somebody that cares a whole lot, that's on the other end of that. But like, be reasonable. You know what I mean? An email at Friday night at 10 o'clock not being answered by 10 or 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, people have come to expect just instant gratification with everything, and that just like doesn't work that way, guys. Like, we can't literally work 24/7. So please keep that in mind when you're emailing. By all means, email us with problems. By all means, email them on the weekend. We don't care, but don't be mad when we don't respond within 3 or 4 hours on a weekend. All right, we will get back to you. And especially like all the stuff as far as like the send-ins, like if somebody has to send in a knife or something for some kind of work, she usually doesn't come out here and work at the shop on the weekends. She's of course answering the emails that she does answer. She's doing them on her phone. So all of her information as far as the list and all the stuff she keeps to keep track of all the send-ins is all out here at the shop. So like, she's not going to come out here, at the shop on a Saturday morning to just get send-in information to send you, send in, which you probably can't ship till Monday anyway, because it's a Saturday. So it's a little ridiculous to expect, an email at 5:00 Saturday morning. Like, just have a little bit of patience. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Again, a little extra frustrating. We've been dealing with that this weekend. Like, we literally had somebody that we'd already been dealing with all weekend since Friday sometime, I think. On into Friday night, responding back and forth with him, trying to help him out with his questions and stuff. And then a second problem develops, and we got that was first mentioned on Friday night. And then I think by sometime this morning, when we didn't get back to him by Sunday morning, he's taking it to social media basically because we weren't responding quick enough, which is highly frustrating on our end because we're trying, guys. Like, just have a little bit of patience. Anyway, moving on before I get too fired up about that. All right. So one of the other things we wanted to talk about, and this was a great time to talk about it. We mentioned it. Chase and I have talked about it a little bit before, but I wanted to go a little more in depth on it because, like I said, she takes care of pretty much all the financial stuff. So we'll get some good insight into a lot of the stuff that I would probably not think of or forget. And so what I want to talk about is like the pricing of knives, and especially like the hidden costs that you guys don't see. It's because I see time and again, not really that often on our stuff. Occasionally it happens, especially on like a dealer post or something where you have customers that some of these dealers have customers that are in all different phases of the game, right? We all know there's the customers that buy, $50 knives, $100 knives, $200 knives and on up. Most of our customers, like in our group and interacting on our posts, are used to the price point that we're at. They're not like freaking out over the price and stuff. But occasionally you see it, and we see it, honestly, I see it more on just looking at dealers' posts and stuff, other people's stuff, and people freaking out about the price. And then people even saying, a piece of titanium costs X amount, costs $10 or $20, whatever, and steel costs this amount. Why does the knife cost, $500 or $600 when steel and titanium together is like, $50? Guys, that is so far from being like the total of the cost that it's beyond ridiculous. Like, you cannot take the sum total of what the materials cost and add in just a little bit of labor and think that covers the cost of the knife, because there are so many things that factor in to the cost of the knife that is ridiculous. So there's some stuff that's what I kind of call like hard costs, and there's kind of some soft costs, and then there's other factors that factor in that we'll talk about on the tail end of this. So it's like some of the things that she and I were talking about this today is why we decided to talk about it on the podcast. So like things like, all right, so yes, we purchased the material, right? So we have the actual material cost, all right, and then for all the material essentially that we're buying goes to water jet. So titanium and steel goes to water jet. So then there's the cost of the water jet and the shipping, all right, and then it gets here, and then basically we do everything except on the blades. Then we send them out to heat treat. So that's another cost that's outside of the shop. But then inside the shop, one of our biggest expenses is payroll, right? Like that's literally one of our, if you go down like our line item on our
probably machines and then payroll.
Machine payments and then payroll. So we'll start, since I said payroll first, we'll start with that. So payroll is a big expense, guys. And like we're actually running with as small of a crew as we can to try to put out the number of knives that we're trying to put out. We're actually probably a little bit undermanned, to be honest with you, but my guys have been really killing it, and I'm trying to we're still trying to push to get a little bit better at everything. So we're running basically about as lean as we can. And we're currently at
Six
employees
and then
besides
us.
you and I, right? So we got 6 people besides you and I, and we try to pay good competitive salaries.
Well,
So
we have to because of where we are.
yeah,
Everybody's hiring and everybody's paying decent money, so we have to pay a little bit better, but we also have to have really good benefits because we are a lesser known company in the area.
right,
Like we haven't been here. We've been here 4 years, so
right.
it's
And we're in a very rural area, as a lot of you know. So we don't have a huge pool of people to pull from for employees, and so that that kind of hurts us. But like she said, that also means that we have to, and there's some other plants in the area. There's not a ton, but there's enough within, because around here it's not unusual for people to drive an hour, hour and a half to go work at a decent job at a plant or whatever. So we have to be able to compete. And when we're talking about plants, we're talking about, like, some of these are like big plants, some of them medium sized, some of them are really big plants. And so we have to try to be able to compete with them to even have employees to work with, because if we don't, we can't hire anybody. So plus we want to, let me take the time to say this now. One of the reasons that we're doing what we're doing and trying to do it at the level that we're doing it at is not just so that she and I can stack up a bunch of money and stack up a bunch of money and like just live on a super extravagant lifestyle. Do we want to make money? Absolutely. But we also want to bring other people along as we go. All right. So that includes, first and foremost, our actual direct employees. We want to be able to provide good jobs for people in the community. We want to be able to, for them to be able to, reach the goals that they want to out of life, live the lifestyle that they want to live by working with us. All right. And then that branches out to our vendors and stuff, like our water jet guy, the guy that we buy our titanium from, the people that we buy our steel from, the people that do our heat treating. We want all those people that do our hardware. We want all those people to do well as well. They're kind of a part of our extended team, And so what we do helps support their livelihood and the livelihoods of their employees and stuff and their families. And so that's a big part of why we try to do this. So we're not saying that we're paying the salaries begrudgingly. It's just a fact of life that we were able to give some raises the other day, and we were like, that's one of the best days we've had in, I don't know, a while. Like, we both were just super happy and tickled that we were able to do that. So it's not begrudging, but it's a fact of life. When you start looking at the financials, a lot of money goes out to payroll. All right. So you got the payroll, you got the benefits, you've got the payroll taxes. We got to give the government its cut, like it or not. And I don't like it, but it is what it is. So
you have insurance.
Yeah,
we have
right.
life insurance
Right.
for the guys.
So right, and part of the benefits is providing for the ones that need it and need to take advantage of, is providing health insurance. We have life insurance policy on all of them. We have a retirement plan where we do some matching. So, like, we're trying to make a good place to work here, and we're trying to provide a good living and a good solid place to work for these guys. So all of that factors in to cost of making the knives, right? Because that's got to come out of somewhere, and that comes out of the overall profit, right? So then, like she mentioned, the machine payments. So we've got to have the machines to make knives at this level. So you got to pay for the machines. So we have payments on all the machines, and so that's a pretty big. It's a pretty big chunk every month.
We have to
right?
have insurance on all.
And then, right, just like when you go buy a new car or a new house or anything else that you're making payments on, guess what? You have to have insurance on that. So every machine that we have financed has to have an insurance policy. All right. So every one of them has an insurance policy. We have to have general liability to cover just the shop in general. If something were to happen, we were to have a fire or whatever, we have to have, or somebody were to get hurt on the property or something, we have to have general liability insurance. And those of you that, everybody out there pays for some sort of insurance or the other, probably several different kinds. So when we're talking about insurance, we're not talking about like $10. We're talking about a chunk, right? This insurance is expensive and doing nothing but getting more expensive. So then we have liability. I said liability. We have workman's comp insurance that we provide, that we provide, and we legally have to whether we want to or not. Not that we wouldn't, but we have workman's comp insurance. And so that's another pretty big chunk. And then that's kind of it as far as the machines and that's all the insurances. I think all those like 3 different kinds of insurance we have to have. Yeah.
Well, technically, we don't by law have to have general liability. But
No, you
can
don't
you
by
imagine
law, but
not
we've got to
having
have it,
general
right? I
liability?
mean, you can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be dumb. So there's all that. All right. Then we actually were thankful. We're lucky enough that we were. When I say lucky, this goes back to the sacrifice thing, because when we built this shop, we didn't have to take out a loan to build it. We actually took money that we had set back and reinvested it into the shop. So we don't owe any money on the shop itself, thank goodness, or we would have rent. But a lot of these companies that don't own their own property or whatever do have to pay rent, because we're not just talking about our pricing here. I'm talking about in general, guys.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, we looked at places to rent, and
We did.
we wouldn't still be in business if we would have.
It was so expensive that
it was
yeah,
outrageous. So,
at least where we were at. So when we lived over closer to the University of Alabama at the time, and before we moved over here and built this shop, and the property is outrageous over there. Like, we looked at some rental stuff, and it was ridiculous, like $10,000 a month, something like that. Like, it was crazy. So anyway, so for a lot of companies, that's a factor. Thankfully for us, it's not. But then we just mentioned about the heating and cooling earlier. So that was a pretty major investment to install heating and cooling into a building this size. We'd already, made the investment of the mini splits several years ago. And then that rolls around to the power bill. Power bill is ridiculous. All right. Because we're running so much stuff in here. Besides, the air conditioning and stuff is a big part of it, but then we're running multiple machines. We have actually 2 different power bills, because we have a 110 line running into the shop, and we have a 3-phase line running into the shop, and both of them are ridiculous. Like, power is not cheap, especially here. I'm sure there's places in the country where it's a lot more, but it's a pretty big expense every month.
I feel like Alabama Power should probably be advertising with us.
Yeah, I feel like we ought to be getting some kind of sponsorship from them or something. So again, that's another, just like that factors into your family budget every month. You've got to use power, so power factors in. Water factors in. Water's not as big of a deal, but still, it's there every month. Garbage pickup. We have to have. We produce quite a bit of garbage, running a business like this and doing the kind of stuff that we do. So we have to have, can't just have one little garbage can. We've got to have a decent sized garbage pickup. So we've got garbage pickup. What else is there as far as like utility kind of stuff? I think that's kind of it for like the utility. Phones,
internet.
Yeah, phones, internet. So we have monthly. We actually are on Starlink here, because it was the cheaper option. We had the option to get fiber optic cable, but we already had the Starlink set up when that came around. So, and it works great at the shop typically. So we use that. So we've got that every month. And like I said, we have to have, cell phones, obviously, to communicate with people. And then you start getting into all the ancillary equipment. So besides all the stuff that I talked about, like the machine payments, guys, we've got tens of thousands of dollars, if not, I don't know, I'd have to do the math on it, a lot tied up in other stuff that we don't have payments on. The stuff that we've just paid cash for, like blasting cabinets, grinders, surface grinder, computers. We bought 2 new two new desktops in the last 6 months. Three new desktops within the last year, and 2 of them being pretty expensive ones, because we need them to run Fusion well. So, and just all the assorted machines and hand tools and stuff that would go into it, and then milling. All the tooling for the milling and stuff. You guys, those of you anybody that's in machining that listens to this, you'll understand what I'm saying. But like, most of you guys probably have no idea what tooling and stuff costs. Like, it is like carbide end mills and stuff. Some of those end mills are $70, $80 a piece, and you may put it in there and it may last for, you may run a couple hundred parts with it, or you may run 2 parts with it and it may break. And so, and some of them are more, most of them are at least in the $15 to $20 range, and then they go on up from there. So, and they break all the time. They wear out fairly quickly. Like, it's I don't know exactly what our tooling budget is, but it's pretty high. And then you've got the tool holders that go in them. They're expensive. Those aren't as consumable as the tools themselves, but they're still another pretty big cost that we've invested in. So, and I guarantee you, we're going to get done with this podcast and get to talking later, and there's going to probably be 100 things that we left out and didn't even mention of stuff that we have to spend money on.
2 times in the past year, we've had to contract someone to come here to learn how to do something with the surface grinder, and then with the.
Yep, that's right. Yep, we bought the double disc. Yeah, so the double when we brought on the double disc, and I'd never run a double disc before, no idea how to set it up and or run it. So we had to actually hire some contract people to come and teach us how to use it and get it set up. Same thing with grinding these blades. I've talked about the new method that we're using. We had to hire an applications engineer to come in and help us try to figure that out to get that going. Those are kind of, I guess you'd call them educational costs or whatever. So yeah, that's another kind of hidden cost.
Credit card fees.
Oh yeah. Let's go ahead and before we get into that, let's talk about more consumables. So like, do you know how many paper towels and toilet paper you go through with 6 employees in the shop? Not even counting us. But like, guys, imagine having, 6 dudes in your house and how much, and we're constantly doing stuff all day that's dirty and all that. So paper towels, like it's going out of style. Regular kitchen, like paper towels, and then the blue shop towels, which are even more expensive. We use a crap ton of those. We should invest in Scott paper towels probably. And toilet paper, like it's going out of style. Just, all kinds of consumables, and obviously soap and, all that kind of stuff. So there's all those little, and when you break down the cost of those and divide it out, like over how many knives we build, like, so say how much we spend on toilet paper in a month, you divide that into how many knives we make in a month. It's not a lot, but all these different things, if you do that with them, it adds up to be a lot. Like when you take all these different things and you say, okay, well, that's only another, 10 cents per knife that it's costing for toilet paper, or, $2 per knife for tooling or whatever. But when you add all these different things up and divide it into the number of knives you're making and the money you're making off of them, it really starts to chip away at the amount of money that you have left over to get to call profit. And so what she was just mentioning was something that I'm sure a lot of you are probably not even aware of. I never thought about it before we had to deal with it. But like, anytime somebody cancels an order or does a return, we eat all the credit card fees, guys. We don't get those back because as far as the credit card processor is concerned, they did their job. They processed the card, right? So that service has been provided. It's been paid for. They took their fees out. We don't get those back if we cancel your order. So when somebody's just like, it's like, no harm, no foul. I decided, my wife found out I ordered it and she wasn't supposed to know I ordered it, or which is the case probably 90% of the time, even though guys don't admit it. Or whatever, whatever. I need to cancel this order. And it happens, it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens pretty frequently. And I mean, some of those fees, when you're talking about the fees on a knife, that's sometimes 30, 40.
We pay those fees anyway.
Well, we're paying those fees anyway. So that's actually another hidden cost. So when you're looking at, okay, you're calculating, okay, they're selling knives at, $550 a piece, and they're selling this many of them on a drop. They just made X number of dollars. Like, well, you take out, about 3%, 3.5% right off the top for credit card fees that we had to eat. And then it's either that or pass it on to you guys. I mean, and then the price goes up.
Gets a fee, so.
And then Sezzle, for when we do that, they get a fee.
Sezzle. Shopify gets a fee.
Shopify, right. Gets a fee on top of our web. Yeah, because that's where our website's set up through. So you have the credit card processing fee. Shopify gets their cut. So right off the top, before we ever even get to start paying for any of this other stuff we've been talking about, you're starting to pay for, you're having to pay them, just to do the transaction, basically. And website domains and all that stuff is another, hosting and all that's another fee that we didn't mention. Also like the Fusion, like all the subscriptions and stuff for like software and stuff. So like our Fusion is fairly expensive every year for a subscription to that. I can't even think of what all else we've got. QuickBooks, those kind of things. So anyway, back to the fees. So yes, like those come out anyway. Those are already getting subtracted off the top. And then to make matters worse, when somebody cancels an order or does a return, then we don't get those fees back. So if somebody buys a knife and then they turn around tomorrow and email us or whatever and say, hey, I decided I don't want this. I can't afford it. I whatever. And then something came up. Well, we just ate probably $30 or $40 right there. And it doesn't take a whole lot of that to start to add up, guys. And then with the shipping stuff. So obviously we pay, the shipping is added in. We don't ship for free typically. So that's added in. So we're not technically necessarily eating that cost. But it's got to be, unfortunately, way too often that packages are getting lost. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but every service out there right now sucks. Like, they're losing stuff constantly. They're being slow. Like, it's a pain. All right. And as much of a pain as it is for you guys receiving packages, I guarantee you it's worse for us sending them, because then we're having to deal with, dealing with the whole thing, and then it actually costing us money if it doesn't turn up. And there's been multiple times over the last.
Most of the time it does not turn up.
And most of the time it does not turn up, and it doesn't make. It's not really financially viable for us to put enough insurance on every package to fully insure it. And even if you did, I don't think they actually give you back the full amount, from what I've understood from other people that do it. It would end up costing us way more in the long run to insure all of them. But then if you don't insure them, like we may ship out, like we've replaced a couple of like $500 to $600 knives lately, and we get back if we're lucky, with some of them we haven't even been able to get any money back out of UPS, and the ones that we did, we got like $100, which is not even enough to cover what we have in the knife. So we're taking a loss on the knife right there. So just another hidden cost. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens, and you've got to be able to cover that. What else? What's some other stuff that I'm not thinking of?
I mean, it depends on how granular you want to get.
Marketing and advertising, like the shows that we do 3 different blade shows a year. We actually do, 4 if you count the CanCon that we did last year. We're doing this year. So those shows there, those are pretty expensive to have tables and booths at those shows.
And then we
advertise at them because, again, we're trying. Do we have to advertise? No, but we're trying to build a bigger brand. We're trying to grow our company. So advertising and marketing is important. We're limited on where we can advertise and market because we build weapons. So it's we do what we can where we can. So we advertise those shows. So it costs let's just say several $1,000s for us to do each show. See, it's making me choke up. I'm thinking about it. So how much it's costing us. So several $1,000s per show that we do for the marketing and stuff. All right. So that money has to come from somewhere. All of the money has to come from what we charge for our knives. And we sell a little bit of merch and stuff like that too, but the vast majority of it's knives. So all of that has to factor in. And then I don't know, you were talking about being granular. What?
I mean, down to our boxes and our stickers and all the things that we try to do to make it a very presentable.
Right. Like she's talking about like our shipping boxes, like our Be Nice boxes, or the new ones we've got with the Eagles. Those aren't free. We have to pay for those. We have to constantly buy the actual shipping boxes, just the regular old brown boxes. Again, those don't. FedEx or the post office doesn't provide us with those. Which we ship all FedEx pretty much now. So we have to buy our own boxes. We have to buy UPS. Sorry, I said FedEx. They're sucking so bad I didn't even want to say their name. So packing material, bubble wrap, all that kind of stuff. Like
our safer secure tape,
the stickers, the security tape to try to keep stuff from getting stolen, or from packages to getting so smashed and banged up that stuff doesn't fall out of them. All that kind of stuff. So and even down to like office supplies, just crap like that. And I know there's tons of things that we're leaving out and not thinking of that, but just there are a lot of hidden costs that go into making a business. So when you see somebody out there talking about, titanium doesn't cost but $20 and my car does whatever. just know that they have absolutely no idea what it takes to manufacture something, because those costs are by far the smallest part of the equation of what it costs to actually do this. All right. Now, if you're running a little one-man show, it's still there, but there's not as many costs, obviously. But the trade-off is you're not being able to make as many knives. So it's all a balance, because I still had a bunch of overhead costs when I was doing this as a one-man show, but I was only putting out a fraction of the knives, so I didn't have nearly as much money coming in either. So it's all, it just scales, and all the numbers get bigger. You bring in more money, but you also spend a crap ton more money, and all this stuff too, guys. That's another factor that people don't take into consideration is the risk. Like, we take on a lot of risk. We carry that around on our backs constantly. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of like wild man. Like, I just kind of go with it. It bothers her, I think, a lot more than it does me. She's a little more risk averse than I am. But like, we take on a ton of risk. Like, if something happened and, our brand kind of bit the dust today, we've still got to make those machine payments. Like, we could potentially, yes, we could lay off employees and not have to make payroll, but like, that's like a devastating thing to us to think about having to lay people off. So like, we could potentially have to lay people off, and their livelihoods, they've depended on us for their livelihoods. That could all go south. All these machine payments and everything could we could be still having to make those while not being able to produce anything or whatever. Like, all of this stuff, like, it's a ton of risk involved that most people are not willing to do. All right. And when you're willing to do something to make something happen that other people aren't willing to do, there's a certain amount of value in that. Right. If you're just like, I'm not climbing to the top of a cell phone tower to change out a freaking light bulb. All right. And from what I've heard, those people make a lot of money. All right. Good. They should, because they're willing to take risk and do things that other people like me aren't willing to do. Right. There's a lot of jobs out there that's like that. Working on an oil rig, a lot of these dangerous jobs. Yeah. Climbing under a house. Yeah. We paid somebody to climb under our house the other day because I didn't want to get in there and freak out and have claustrophobia. So, but yeah. So there's a certain amount of value in being willing to take on risk that other people aren't willing to take on. And when it comes to running a business, that's a factor. That's part of it. You're taking on risk that a lot of other people are not willing to take on. And so there's a certain amount of value in that. All right. And then getting out of like the hard costs, or really even kind of the costs in general, another thing that factors into pricing, guys, is number one, a lot of it is you're paying for people's experience. All right. So like, what is 17 years worth of knife making worth? What is 17 years worth of knife designing worth? You know what I mean? Like, because I can tell you right now, my design skills have grown exponentially over the last 17 years. Like, some of the early stuff that I did was total crap. Like, I'm just going to tell you from a design standpoint, well, from all of it standpoint, but like, it has developed, right? And so like, what is that worth to have? Would you be willing to pay a lawyer that's going to represent you in a murder trial? Would you be willing to pay somebody that's got 30 years of, or let's just keep it 1-to-1. Would you be willing to pay somebody that's got 17 years experience more to defend you in court than a lawyer that just came out of law school and has no experience, or say has a year of experience? I'd be willing to pay the guy that's got the 17 years of experience if it was me, right? And most of you would too, if you were able to spend it. You see what I'm saying? Like, experience is worth something. All right. So that's another factor that goes into pricing. And
and our patents and our,
oh yeah, that's some more actual costs. So on that note, like, we've recently, we've reached the point where we've had to start thinking about things like getting trademarks and patents and stuff to protect our intellectual property. We've already got stuff being knocked off and all that. And so unfortunately, that's just a part of business that you have to be willing to do, especially if you're dealing with something where you're creating something yourself and it's your own intellectual property. So
we even had to trademark our name.
Yeah, we literally had to trademark our own name. It's our last name, and we had to trademark that. We have to spend money to trademark that to make sure that somebody else can't trademark it and then screw us completely over, right? So that's another one of those very hidden costs, because it's, I mean, you kind of have to do it, or you could be completely screwed, just like I was talking about with that risk. But it's not cheap. I mean, that's law. You know, lawyers aren't cheap. You go through a lawyer to do that stuff, and it's not cheap. So, and with design patents, you have to pay for every single design that you have. Like, you can't just do a, one size fits all. It has to be a separate fee for everything that you design. And on that note, when you do a trademark, it has to be a separate category. You pay extra. It's like, what, $750 or something extra for every category. So, like, if you're going to use your trademark on knives, that's $750. If you're going to use it on shirts, that's $750. If you're going to use it on handkerchiefs, that's $750. If you're going to use it on pry bar, it's $750. If you're going to use it on a lighter, that's $750. Every different category is like an extra fee. All right. So again, this stuff adds up really quick, right? And so and then to kind of sum all this up, besides all of that, if we were talking about like a literal razor blade, like goes in a utility knife, then trying to cut down to the, pun intended, trying to cut down to the nitty gritty of, okay, how much did it actually cost with all those things factored in? How much did it cost to manufacture this blade? And then factor in a little bit of profit, and then that's a fair price for it. That seems kind of reasonable. But we're not dealing in stuff that's as simple and utilitarian as something like a razor blade, right? We're dealing with essentially functional art, right? When you get in, especially when you get into the price range of the kind of stuff that we make, when you're spending, even say, I'd say probably like $200 or up, especially if you're in the $300-400 range and up, you're paying for a certain amount. Is kind of like functional art, because you can find cheaper knives that will perform well enough to do most of the tasks that you want to do, but you're paying for more than just the function of it. All right, you're paying for the cool factor. You're paying for just the fact that it's, it's like the difference in paying for a supercar versus a Prius. They will both get you from point A to point B, but there's a huge difference in the two things, right? So there's that factor. And when you look at it, guys, like some of the things, think about like a lot of what we deal with is in our industry is collectability, right? So a lot of people are, there are people that are strictly buying a knife. I need a good knife to use at work every day, not looking to buy 20 of them. I just need a good knife to use at work every day. And people buy those and they use them, right? There's that kind of user. But the majority of the people that buy our knives, I would say, are collectors at some level or the other. A lot of them have multiples of our knives. They've got our knives. They got other comparable brands. They've got all kinds of stuff. And we hear it all the time. We're like, oh yeah, I've got 200 knives in my collection, whatever. So when it comes to collecting, it really gets tricky trying to think about pricing stuff or whatever, because think about what's something else that's highly collectible. Pokemon cards. How much do you think it costs a company to print off a Pokemon card? One Pokemon card. Probably all those factors that I talked about factored in, and as many of them as they make, how much you think they got in them? Probably a few cents at best. And how much do some of them sell for? I don't know crap about Pokemon. I just know that they're collectible. So, but I know that some of them sell for a lot of money, right? Baseball cards, same thing, right? They're worth that because they're collectible, because they're not as mass produced. Like the ones that are worth a lot of money are the ones that are harder to find, harder to get, right? It's the same way with everything. Same way with sneakers. Like it doesn't cost them, companies that are selling sneakers for hundreds or thousands of dollars, and people that are flipping them and selling them and stuff like that for the prices they're getting for them, for a pair of shoes that was made overseas and probably cost $10 to make, right? If you really want to get down to it, what about paintings? What about actual art? How much does some oil paint and a canvas cost? But how much does some of the finished products sell for? hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of dollars, some of them, you know. So it's, when it comes to collectability, a lot of that goes out the window, and it kind of becomes like what people are willing to pay for it, which is the bottom line of what something is worth, is what somebody's willing to pay for it, right? So for us, we're not doing a one-off painting. So it's not about what one person is willing to pay for that painting. It's about what's a good, modest price that enough people are willing to pay for it to buy everything that we can make. And that's where we try to land. And it to be a fair price, fair enough to us that we're able to do what we need to do and continue to be able to grow the business and make a little bit of money and make a living, and the people under us to make a living, and the people around us that, you know, like I said, our vendors and stuff to make a living, and still keep it as reasonable as possible. So just a lot of stuff to think about when it comes to pricing, guys. Like, there's a whole lot more to it than just the cost of the materials and adding a little bit of labor to it, and that's what you think the craftsman or the artist ought to make. And that's is true not even just in our industry. It's just true for anybody that makes stuff, right? You go to somebody that's making furniture or making, you know, blowing glass or doing whatever. Like, all of that stuff, all of these things factor in for all of those people. And so, especially when it comes down to, like I said, the art side of it and the collectability side of it, there's a lot of factors that it's really hard to put a number on besides what people are willing to pay for it. Like, that's what it comes down to. So, don't be the jerk that's on there commenting on people's posts about, you know, oh, okay, this is overpriced, this is whatever. Well, it may be to you. There's a lot of things that I would like to buy that, to me, they are overpriced. And by how I determine that is, I haven't been willing to spend my money on them yet. If something is priced, if I want it and it's more than I'm willing to spend my money on, then obviously to me it is overpriced. That doesn't mean I'm going to go on there and whine and make a comment and, you know, be a baby about it. I'm just not going to buy it. Or I'm going to wait until I decide that it is worth it to me, you know, or maybe never buy it. It just depends. I mean, sometimes stuff grows on you. You get thinking about it. I get the itch for a certain thing, a certain gun or a certain vehicle or whatever. And while it, you know, at first it might not be worth it to me, but then the more I see it, the more I think about it, eventually, eventually it starts to eat at me, and eventually I decide it is worth it to me, right? But I never hop on there and, you know, oh, this GMC is overpriced or whatever. Like,
well, I think that's not how we grew up, and that's not how we, like, I wasn't even on Facebook until 2020 when I had to be on Facebook.
Yeah.
I would not choose to just be on Facebook. Like,
yeah. That's definitely part of it, is a generational thing. But it's not just, I mean, I see people that are our age or older that are some of the worst offenders about this
their
crap.
mama just didn't smack them.
Yeah, they just didn't get the hell knocked out of them like it should have. But just bad manners to start with. I mean, that's what it comes down to, guys. It's manners. Like, have some manners. Like, we said it on here before. If you ain't got something nice to say, then just don't say anything. And, I mean, I don't know. I would be ashamed to get on a post of something like some really nice vehicle or whatever, or some nice gun that I want. Like, I would be mortified to get on there and say, you know, oh, this is overpriced. Because then all I'm doing basically is admitting that I'm too poor to buy the thing that I'd like to have. Like, because if I had enough money to where it wasn't that big of a deal, then I'd probably buy it because I like it, you know? So it's not actually that it's not worth what they're asking for it. It's just that it's not worth it to you with the current amount of money that you have available, right? Because if you could quadruple or, you know, whatever, if you could 100x the amount of money you have in your bank account right now, would you be willing to go out and buy it then? In most cases, probably so. So it's not that it's not worth it to you. It's just not worth it to you for what you have available to you at the moment. It's not worth the sacrifice that you would have to make to give up that amount of money, which would cost you not being able to buy other things. But if you had, say, unlimited amount of money or way more money, you all of a sudden you would think it was worth it and you'd probably buy it, right? So it's all perspective, guys. So we're getting pretty close to probably having a full episode here of mostly me ranting, but it's okay. One other thing that I did want to touch on that we've also been dealing with this weekend is, and we actually just kind of segued into it accidentally, is the social media thing. People and their comments and their manners, like we were just saying, on social media. So one thing that you guys have got to be aware of is, unless you're intentionally trying to hurt somebody's brand or their business, then you should really stop and think before you go and post stuff or before you comment on something, and decide whether that's something you should really say or not. All right. Because, like it or not, all businesses basically live and die off of word of mouth. All right. Word of mouth these days is primarily online. All right. And so you have to be careful and realize that some of the stuff that you're saying may be taken way out of proportion. All right. For example, all right, say this is just a personal example that we've experienced. So a lot of you know that our detents and the way we make our detents and stuff, especially on the Mac 2s, is a little different than most. It's not just the detents, the angle and stuff of the thumb stud, just the way you open them. They're a little different than most thumb opening knives out there. All right, they take a little bit of getting used to for most people. We have had tons and tons of people contact us about detents being too strong, and probably, save from the very, very early times when I think we talked about here on the podcast about how I had taught Chase to do detents and he was getting them too strong to start with and all that. So for a long time now, since probably like back in the very beginning, out of all the complaints that we get about detents, it's, I would say, probably at least 90% of them are, there's not really anything actually wrong with the detent. People just aren't used to the way we make them. And so,
well, and probably 80% of those I can open.
Right.
So
right. Yeah, just so y'all know. Just so y'all know, if y'all complain about a detent and you send it in and we check it, if she pulls it out of the box and she can open it, then it is 100% you, because she doesn't have super strong opening skills and stuff. If she can open the knife with her thumb and you're claiming that it's detent's too strong, then I promise you the detent's not too strong. Like, that's kind of our litmus test here. So, because we understand that me and most of the guys, we've gotten, we have the technique completely down. We've got pretty strong hands and stuff from doing this day in and day out. So if it comes in and she tests it, then just know we're laughing at you when you say that the detent's too strong.
I also open most of them before they ship out.
Right.
Like, I touch
she checks most
of the knives just to know, like, we didn't send one out.
And even if she doesn't, a minimum of 2 people, and usually at least 3 people, have opened that knife more than once as well, along from the time it was finally assembled. All right. So it's sometimes they're mechanical objects. Sometimes stuff can happen. Something can move, shift, do whatever, and a problem can actually develop. But most of the time, at this point, it's user error. All right. And how this ties into the social media thing is, all right, so if you get one of our knives and you try to open it and you have trouble with the detent, you hop on Facebook and you start saying, "Oh, this detent is too tight. I can't even open it." Well, a bunch of people on there with no point of reference, maybe have never even handled one of our knives, maybe don't understand how our, the mechanics, the detents, the whole thing I was talking about how they're a little different than other knives, don't understand that. And so now, in all those people's eyes, it's, "Oh, McNees has got QC issues. Their detents have problems, whatever." And then, a lot of times first thing we do if somebody has trouble with the detent is send them a video that I've got on YouTube that shows, the technique of how to open it and stuff. And probably 9 times out of 10, at least, maybe 9.5 times out of 10, that fixes it. Like, they're able to figure it out. They'll come back a day or 2 later and be like, "Yeah, I watched the video. I got it now. Everything's fine." Sometimes even without watching the video, whatever. But guess what? All those people that saw that post and all those people that chimed in and, "Oh, that's not right. They should have better QC and blah, blah, blah." Guess what? It wasn't even a QC issue. It was a customer error issue, right? But you got on there, and even though you weren't intending to blast us, you got on there and you talked about it, and now everybody on there that sees that, and you leave that post up, and how many people are going to see that, over the next couple of weeks or whatever, until that it kind of gets buried or whatever, in whatever group you posted it in. Like, have a little bit of like respect and courtesy. And that's why we're so adamant, like in our group, to say, don't just hop in here talking about a problem until you contact us and let us see what's going on. All right. Because it might not be an actual problem with the knife. It might be you. All right.
And we're kind enough to not go back and post it when it is you. We don't call you out on social media when
even
it's
though
you,
we could.
Even though we could a lot.
Yeah.
But we don't do that.
We take the high road.
Maybe we should do that.
But a lot of you guys, not necessarily you guys that are listening to this or whatever, but a lot of people out there, they don't show the same courtesy to us. They want to get on there and, is this normal? What, for somebody to not know how to open our knives? Yeah, that's actually pretty normal. But that's obviously not what they mean. They mean that they think there's something wrong with the knife. And guys, the proof of this is that we see it so much at shows. I swear I need to record at shows and show this. We will have all day long every day at every show, we will have people come up and grab our knives, and we'll have, most people are fine. They can open them up just fine. But every few minutes or every, couple of times an hour or whatever, somebody will walk up and you can tell they're over there. They start struggling with trying to open it. We start trying to instruct them or whatever and check it. And then, sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. And I can tell they're just a little frustrated and they walk away. And that's the people that if they were doing that at home, if they just bought a knife and they got it, would be getting on Facebook and blasting us because our detents are too strong. But then guess what? The next person that walks up, and half the time it's some 11-year-old kid or some little petite lady walks up and grabs that same knife, that exact same knife, without us doing anything to it, and flicks it open with no problem. Finger flicks it, the whole works. So was there something wrong with the knife, or was there something wrong with that person's technique? But according to them, and they go blast it out on Facebook, then we have QC issues, or we have all these issues with our detents or whatever. So, and this is just one example, guys. And this is, I'm sure people do the same thing with other people, other companies' stuff too. But this is just one that we've seen a recurring theme. And like I said, we have seen it so much in person at shows and answered so many emails and seen how few of them actually have too strong of a detent. We're not perfect. Every now and then one goes out that's a little bit stronger than it should be. I have yet to see one go out that was literally couldn't be opened, because we'll have people swear up and down like, I literally can't open this with one hand. It cannot be opened with one hand. And I'm like, well, it could when it left here, I promise you, because multiple people opened it. And then we get it back and then we'll open it and be like, yeah, that's, it's doable, but we can tell where for a normal person that doesn't make knives all day, it would probably be a little bit tight. So we loosen it up a little bit. But again, that's like maybe 1 out of 10. All right. But my whole point in all this is not to do a sermon about the detents. It's to keep in mind, like, before you post something about somebody's product, just keep in mind the impact that might have when it might be a problem. It also might not be a problem. And you may just be making it out like it's a problem. And then you've hurt their reputation for absolutely no reason. And even if it is a problem, if they take care of it for you, and like for us, if you hop in our group, or if you email us and you say, hey, we got a problem with this knife's got X problem, and we fix it or whatever. And then after the fact, for whatever reason, you feel the need to hop on there and say, hey, my knife had this problem, but they fixed it for me and everything's good now, or whatever, fine. Like, I don't really see the need to do that, but if you feel the need to announce to the world about it, then that's fine. Like, at least you are able to, like, wrap the story up by telling what we did, whether we fixed it or what was wrong with it, or, we made it right or we didn't make it right. Either way, but to just do it initially, like your first instinct to be to hop on Facebook and say, oh, this has got an issue or whatever. Well, then that just lets all the like naysayers, it just gives them ammunition to be able to, oh yeah, I heard this or I heard that. And like half the time these guys, like, we literally had a guy today that jumped on a post and talking about that he had, this is why I'm hung up on the detents right now, that he had 3 or 4 knives from us and he had to send every one of them in for the detents. We go back and look through all of our files and stuff, and he sent 1 knife in for detent work. And we don't make a note we probably need to start. We don't make a note of like, yes, this was legitimate, or they just didn't have the technique down. But I would be willing to bet it probably wasn't even actually too strong in the first place. But yet he's online exaggerating and claiming, oh, I had 3 or 4 that had problems. Like, I don't know why people feel the need to do that. But
I would also add, I read a comment that we seem to be very sensitive about our reputation. We are very sensitive about our reputation because we have built it for 17 years now. We build our reputation daily. We work really hard to meet everybody's needs, wants, and everything else. And it is a very sensitive subject when somebody tears you down online.
And again, we are very polite people. Like if any of you have, if any of you have ever met us in person, then, and I know a lot of you that are listening to this have, then I feel like you probably know that and would agree with that. And if you haven't ever met us, then I think you can ask around to people that actually do know us and have met us and talked to us and dealt with us, that we try to be very polite and we try to do the right thing and we try to take care of people. So when other people don't reciprocate that, it's pretty frustrating. When they're just, it's like people are so ready to bash anybody these days. And again, it's not just us, because we see it constantly with, like, not just in our industry, but across the board. Like, people are, just about any post that any company makes, you're going to see at least 1 or 2 negative Nancy's hop on there and have something negative to say. And guys, it's just so frustrating when you're a polite person and you try to do the right thing and you try to take care of people, and then people act like that. It's very frustrating. And so it is extra frustrating. And like I said, we joke about it sometimes that maybe we need to start kind of punching back a little bit on some of these people, as far as like she was saying, like maybe call people out and make fun of them when they're claiming that something's wrong. and we could, like, I know you guys know there's companies out there that if you start talking crap, then they will light you up. Don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing. We haven't gone that route, but and I don't want to have to, but I would rather just be our normal polite selves and be able to keep doing things this way, and we will. But just, it would make the community and the world a whole lot better if we would all just take a second and take a breath before you post something online and make sure that it's something that you actually need to be saying, before you just, maybe you're a little frustrated right then because you've got something that's got a problem, or you think it's got a problem, and, you feel the need to vent, but you're really not doing any good unless you're going to the root of the problem, which is contacting the company or the individual, and just getting some help with it. Try to get some resolution to your problem rather than just get on there and vent about it. All right. All right. So we're running a little long, but I did have one more thing while we're ranting and raving here that I wanted to mention. It's kind of along this same vein. And this has to do with the secondary market. And I've mentioned it, I think, a little bit here on the podcast before. But one thing that we have found extremely almost bewildering is how we constantly get people that have bought something on the secondaries. So you fill out a form on our site. It asks where you bought it from, right? Whether you're the first owner or whatever. And people have bought it on the secondary, but then they're adamant that I bought it from somebody in the Facebook group, but it's brand new in box, never been carried, never cut anything, whatever. Like, because obviously that's the way the person listed it when they sold it, which they're trying to sell a knife. They're going to try to make it sound as good as possible, right? But then it'll be like, but this knife's got such and such problem. It's brand new in the box, never been carried, one owner or whatever. But then we'll ask them, like, well, did the person you sell it from or bought it from tell you about this problem? No. But you're automatically assuming then that it's a problem with the manufacturing, that it's the company's fault, even though the person that you bought this from you've just proven that they were dishonest with you and that they sold you something that's supposedly new in the box and brand new, but it has a problem. But yet you still seem to take their word and want to assume that it has to be the big bad company manufacturer's fault that something's wrong with this knife. And it never occurs to you that maybe the person that owned it, that sold it to you, did something to it, because it happens a lot, guys. We see it a lot. All right. We have people that will, I feel like, I'm not talking to them, so I don't know what's going on in their head, but I feel like they're trying to slip by on a technicality. We have knives that come in where it's obvious that the blade has been swapped, and the person has sold it as brand new in box, never cut, never carried. Could be true. That knife may have never been carried. That blade may have never cut anything. But what they're not telling you is that they took the blade out of 2 brand new knives and they swapped them, and they're claiming that it's brand new in box. Well, I mean, yeah, if you wanted to stretch the imagination a little bit, yeah, I guess you could say that, but they're obviously not the way they came from the manufacturer. All right. So, and stuff, or, we get one, and this kind of goes back to the detents. There are some tricks out there that people know that are pretty much common knowledge at this point, of things you can do to tweak that will make the detent lighter or stronger. All right. And somebody will get a knife. Maybe they never carried it. Maybe they never did anything but flick it open, but maybe they decided the detent was a little too strong. So they adjusted something, and now the detent is weaker than what we would normally send it out. Maybe the detent is too weak. And then now,
well, that's a QC issue.
That in the customer's mind that bought this knife is a QC issue on our part, because they bought a knife on the secondary from somebody who could not be lying to them, because they said it was brand new in the box and never been carried, even though they didn't tell them that the detent was too weak. Then the problem has to be with us, and that we have a QC issue, right? Do you see where the problem is here? Like, guys, quit believing everything you read and see and that people tell you because your Facebook group buddy told you that this was that or whatever, that they didn't do anything to it. This is the way it was. This is whatever. Is it possible to buy a knife on the secondary that has a problem that is an actual warranty issue that came from the factory that way? Sure, it happens. There's also a whole lot of times where the previous owner did something and they're not disclosing everything, and that's where the issue is coming from. And we seem like we start to see that more and more. So sometimes it's definitive and we can tell for sure. Sometimes it's just something that's like so egregious that like we can tell, like, there's no way that left the shop like that. Like, there's just no way. Like, there's certain things that are easy to kind of sneak under the radar and we have to really be careful about. But some of the like really super obvious things, like, there's just no way it didn't get caught before it left the shop. But yet there it is. All right. So just keep that in mind when you're buying from the secondary, that just because somebody tells you it's like new in the box. And the other part of that is something could be not carried and claiming it like new in the box. How many times did they flip it open before they sold it to you? Did they sit there while they were watching a movie and flip it open 2,000 times? Because I hate to tell you, but that causes wear on a knife. All right. Opening and closing it, especially flicking one open the way we make ours to be made to do it, we're okay with it, but it does cause wear, right? It is still a used knife at that point. Just like you've heard us, me and Chase, talk about people coming up to your table at a show and flicking a knife open multiple times and saying, don't do that because it's not your knife. You're actually putting wear on the knife. The same thing is true of owner. Do you honestly think that somebody bought one of our knives and they didn't flick it open at least probably a couple hundred times? And typically that's not going to cause a problem. But you also don't know if it's one of these people that's a wrist flicker that's flicking it open with excessive force. You don't know if they spine whacked it. You don't know what they did to it. And a person could technically do all of those things that I just said and still say brand new in the box, never carried, never cut anything. Because it would be, but they're not disclosing that they opened it a gazillion times, or that they opened it super hard, or that they spine whacked it, right? Or even that they adjusted something. Because in my mind, technically that's dishonest if they're not disclosing that stuff and saying it's like new in the box. But I can see where somebody could do the mental gymnastics to convince themselves that they're being honest when they say brand new in the box, never cut anything, even though they know that they've done crap to it. All right. So just keep that in mind. Buyer beware on the secondary, because it's not always what it seems. And it is for sure not always the company's fault. All right. Your first thought should be, did the person that I bought this from screw me over? All right. Because they're selling you a knife versus a company that, and I'm not just talking about us, like there's companies that have been in business way longer than us. I see the same kind of crap happening. Companies that have been in business 30, 40 years. but people are automatically taking the word of some Joe Schmo that they met in a Facebook group and bought something from over thinking that, oh, this company's just got this horrible issue or whatever, rather than thinking, yeah, maybe old Joe over here wasn't quite as honest as he said he was or whatever. Maybe there's something going on here. So just keep that in mind, guys. It's a real thing. It happens. And I think one of the problems with it, honestly, is that nobody wants to think that they got taken advantage of. And so it almost feels like they're admitting something bad about themselves if they bought something from somebody that's like less than perfect or whatever, that somebody lied to them or swindled them or was less than honest about something. And so they automatically want to assume that it's somebody else's fault. And unfortunately, the manufacturer tends to be on the receiving end of that, I feel like.
Doesn't matter, though. I mean, we still fix it.
Right.
It's almost like they have to tell us that to get us to fix it, which is definitely not true.
Right. Yep, you're right. I think that's one of the reasons that people do that is they try to over exaggerate, like it's brand new in the box, it's never been used, whatever, because they're afraid that we're not going to cover it from the warranty. And guys, the only time we don't cover stuff is if something has obviously been done that caused the problem, and that the problem didn't come from something we did. That makes sense. So, like if somebody has swapped the blade, for example, then that knife is no longer covered under warranty, right? However, if somebody swapped the blade and something happens in your clip, whatever, I don't know, something's wrong, you find a flaw in your clip, we're going to fix the clip because that has nothing to do with the blade getting swapped, right? Like similar things, like something's, if we can tell that something's been done to the, say you had the blade reground. Most companies would 100%, that's warranty voided. We're not touching it. All right. If you have one that the blade's been ground, now I will say this: if the blade's been ground, I'm going to be highly suspicious that something else was done to it. So it depends. Like if there's, a lockup issue or something like that, I'm going to assume that there's a good chance that whoever messed with the blade and ground the blade also may have messed with something else. But if it's something that we know, or we're even highly suspicious that had nothing to do with the work that you had done, then we're still going to take care of it. All right. So we take care of almost, there's been very, very few times that we've ever either refused to work on something or even charged somebody for it. It's a fake. Obviously we're not working on it. But there's been very few times that we've ever even charged people. And even when we do, it's usually like ridiculously small amount, like $10, $20 maybe, even when we know that something's been done to the knife or whatever. So anyway, you don't have to try to convince us that, the knife is pristine when you bought it on the secondary and just to get us to work on it. So just buyer beware on the secondary, and that not everything is always as it seems. So I believe you and I went as longer than Chase normally do. Shocker that I talked a lot. This was really fun though. I enjoyed this. So guys, we're going to wrap it up, but we greatly appreciate you. And I'm assuming we'll probably be back on schedule with Chase next week. I have no idea. Just so happened that he had some stuff that he was busy with this weekend. So, and remember to send us in questions, comments, topics that you'd like to hear discussed, and you can email them to knifefreakshow.com, or you can just drop them in the comments, especially on YouTube. It's easy to drop them in the comments there. And wherever you're listening, we appreciate you, and we hope this wasn't too much of just a bitch fest. Hopefully there was some good information in there for you. So sometimes it's just stuff that needs to be said, and I don't really necessarily like to hog up the whole podcast when Chase and I are on here with stuff that pertains more kind of to us. So this was a good chance to kind of get some of that out in the open. So you got anything to add?
I don't think so. We appreciate you guys.
We do. Please let us know. Let us know what you thought about Amy being on here, whether you want to see her as a return guest or not. So, all right, guys, we appreciate you. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.